Hi, do you know this brand or this one? I believe you know these brands Zara, H&M, Uniqlo, and it doesn't close the possibilities of you having these products in your wardrobe. Even I own one of these brands. Now, do you know that these so called international brands have their factories located in third world countries? But why? What's up with third world countries that it attracts big brands of the world? Let me get you through this. Okay, big picture. This whole situation started when big corporations wanted big money fast. So how did they achieve that? Well, let's make more factories to boost production. But making factories in their own countries is very expensive. Just to build the factories itself is costly. Then running it is much more expensive. This is where fast fashion brands like Zara and H&M are struggling. So what's their solution? They realize that making and operating factories in third world countries with high number of population is much cheaper than their own countries. They can hire people that are in dire need of income with a salary that is below minimum wage. What's scarier is they are willing to use slaves to lower their production costs. Right, let me walk you through what we are talking about right now. Those scary statement that I said before is actually the end product of human trafficking. According to an anti-slavery charity based in UK, antislavery.org, human trafficking is an act of trapping people with violence, deception, and coercion, and exploit them for profit. Human trafficking have been in this world for a long time, from the Prophet's time in a form of slavery to colonialism era of the European countries. According to a book called Atlas of Transatlantic Slave Trade, published by Yale University Press, 12.5 million African was traded in the transatlantic slave trade era. But now, in this modern era where human rights is strictly enforced, and with the Declaration of Human Rights signed in 1948 by United Nations member, it is very shameful that there are people still doing human trafficking. According to a report from International Labour Organization, there are approximately 20 to 40 million people involved in some types of modern slavery. This number is staggering in a sense that we may pass someone in the streets and not realize that one of those people may be in a traffic-related situation. But hey, human trafficking is not just forced labor. Yes, I understand. Human trafficking consists not just forced labor, but forced prostitution and state-imposed labor. According to International Labour Organization global estimate of forced labor in 2012, forced labor makes the most of human trafficking, with 68% of global human trafficking. Following after, forced labor is forced prostitution with 22%, and state-imposed labor came last at 10%. But why are people willing to work with low income and unhealthy work conditions? Well, the short answer is they have no choice. According to anti-slavery charity group based on UK, antislavery.org, poverty, lack of sustainable jobs and education, as well as weak rule of law, corruption, and economy dependent on cheap labor is what drives people to fall into the hole of forced labor. And that criteria is what is present in most third world countries like Bangladesh, Vietnam, and even our own countries, Indonesia. This is where fast fashion brands benefit the most. With the fast fashion industry, they need to change style every season. And they make every clothing product for the one season in a big bulk. To compensate the demand, factories will hire a huge amount of labor and put them in production line. It is common though for big brands factories to forbid the use of phones inside the production line. Factories often reason that their products are still in secrecy, But in reality, the reason is to prevent any human rights violation to be leaked to the outside world. And one common trick used by factories to cut down production costs is by firing labor or put them in an unpaid leave before big days like Idul Fitri to cut down their holiday allowance. The fast fashion industry does not only violate human rights with their forced and underpaid labors, it also possesses threats towards the environment. The United States Environmental Agency in 2015 estimated that 11.9 million tons of clothing and footwear were discarded from the store as they were simply not bought. Unfortunately, it takes up to 200 years for the material of the goods to be completely decomposed. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, also recorded that the fashion industry produced 10% of global CO2 emissions every year. So to sum it up, the main problem with the fashion industry are two: overproduction and underconsumption. The issue with overproduction on goods obviously put the forced labor in the center of discussion. Why should people be pushed to the brink of death to produce something that people don't even buy? Multinational corporations should be held more accountable under their corporate social responsibility concerning the well-being over their employee, not to mention the monumental damage they contribute towards the sustainability over our environment. The way to implement this is for countries where those corporations operate to strengthen the law in ensuring compliance towards regulation. This is of course the part for policymakers and law enforcers, aka future me. In order to be a responsible and knowledgeable future police officer to combat forced labor as form of human trafficking, I realize I must equip myself with as many resources as possible. What is the current me and all of us, part of the target market, can do? One is to shop more responsibly. Youth are the major player in this fast fashion industry. If we visit Zara, H&M, Uniqlo, we can hardly see any boomer generation shopping in the store. Youth have a major role in holding these companies accountable by reducing or even boycotting their products until they take action to stop forced labor. There are many more choices to shop aside from these brands too, especially local brands, and this way we also help our local products to become independent and become bigger. Two is raise awareness. There are many medias right now where you can have an opinion and be heard by many people, like TikTok and their For You page. There has been many success stories of raising awareness from TikTok, like raising awareness about Uyghur Muslim concentration camp. We can do that same thing with the current fast fashion and forced labor situation. If we all in this together, we can combat forced labor-induced human trafficking. I'm Muhammad Alkeizar Ayanda. Thank you for your attention.